Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at, whenever you're watching this. We're going to be starting a new SCP canon here. We're going to be jumping into the Red Tape series. This is one that a lot of people have requested, including my YouTube members. So we're going to be starting off here with episode 1, SCP-001, Memento Mori in the Red Tape series. And going to be looking forward to this. From various comments that people have left, etc. I believe this Red Tape series is about the Davites and Sarkics and the Meccans and a lot of the ancient stuff that happened between them, and maybe, you know, expanding on some of that stuff further, which I am very much about. I'm very fascinated. I've said numerous times that the Davites, Meccans, and Sarkic, that whole like ancient time period, and those factions are some of the more interesting stuff in the SCP universe, and would love to expand more on them. So I think that's what this is getting into. So we'll see as we go in here, but I'm looking forward to jumping into it. Links as always will be down below in the description to the Exploring series channel, as well as the original video here. I'm probably just going to post the playlist since this is a long playlist. I think it's like 20 episodes. I think it's actually, there's 20 videos in this, but I think it's actually less because he's got them. Some of them are like 4 or 5 parters, and he's got some of them all put together in one super long video or broken up. So I don't think it's necessarily actually 20 videos that we're going to go through in this series. But anyway, I'll probably just put the playlist down below. So yeah, looking forward to jumping into this. If you've been around the channel for a while and want to take your support to the next level, there's a join button in this video. You can check out all the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. If you do me a favor, consider hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button on the channel. Lets me and the YouTube algorithm know that you're enjoying this content and you want some more. So yeah, thank you guys very much. Let's jump into the video. Again, this is SCP-001 Memento Mori, the first video in the Red Tape series. So yeah, let's jump into it as soon as my monitor will work. There we go. Boom, boom.
SCP-001 Memento Mori. Memento Mori is a Latin phrase meaning remember death, or in other words, remember that life is finite and death comes no matter what. Death is a common occurrence in the SCP universe, of course, and most people working for the SCP Foundation are well aware that death is waiting around any corner. There are some individuals, though, notably the O5 Council, that typically seek to prolong their lives for as long as possible.
I think in some canons, aren't they even immortal, technically, right? In some of the SCP canons, depending which one you're going are in some of the O5 Council immortal. They basically just can't die.
This SCP-001 proposal shows a time when those efforts ultimately come to an end, and death comes for even them. It goes without saying that, like any of the 001 proposals, this one is canon only if you want it to be canon. In a surprising turn, this file is classified as Clearance Level 001/1 by the administrator of the Foundation, and all Foundation personnel are permitted and encouraged to read it.
Interesting.
The personnel reading the file currently, however, is O5-13.
It's always interesting, right? Like in wasn't it also in the Ouroboros cycle? It was 013 or 0513. That was kind of the one running around trying to eliminate everyone. I'm trying to remember, but it always seems like 0513 has some kind of significance.
SCP-001 refers to a collection of 13 anomalous areas present within Site-01, a mansion located in rural Virginia. The mansion was constructed in the 1760s by Duke Franz C. Williams, an Austrian noble who founded the SCP Foundation, and continues to serve as its administrator. Williams emigrated from Europe during the 7 Years' War, which, due to the number of anomalies present during the conflict, is also regarded as the First Occult War.
That's something that I would love also to hear more about is the occult war from things that I've looked up and to my understanding, it's something that's really has only been referenced in a lot of different SCP stories, but there hasn't really actually been like a definitive canon that talks about the occult wars or what they've really been about. Only that there's been several of them. So that would be something that I would love to, I guess, learn more about or maybe piece together if anyone has any kind of videos or any other kind of SCP readings that actually kind of piece together the various occult wars and what they were about and everything like that. Would be something I'd be interested in.
Williams arrived in America with a private party of 12, who would become the first overseers of the Foundation when it was eventually formed during the American Civil War. It became customary for new overseers to make their own additions to the mansion, often with anomalous effects. Access to the site was severely restricted until very recently, but much like this document, Foundation personnel are permitted to make trips to the mansion to observe it themselves. The first anomalous area is the Bridge Archive, an underground storage area holding approximately 2,000 historical artifacts from the early 18th century to the late 21st.
Interesting.
Obviously, this article takes place a good deal into the future. The vast majority of these artifacts are not anomalous, but handling any of them while within the area subjects the handler to a sudden burst of visions, typically associated with the object's historical context. For example, touching a Spanish naval cannon induces a vision of a single Spanish galleon approaching a larger English man-o'-war and its escorts, possibly in the Caribbean. The galleon is sporting this unique cannon at the bow of the ship and fires at the man-o'-war. The cannonball collides with the ship, and seconds later, a number of massive tentacles rise from the depths and crush the man-o'-war, with a gigantic eye visible below the water.
Summon the Kraken.
Another object, a French cavalry sword, produces a vision of a battlefield in France, with French troops huddling in a trench, while distant screaming is heard overhead. The screaming suddenly stops, and the French troops rush out of the trench.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Fuse. I would love to be in that room, and I would just go around touching all the various artifacts that I could, just to see what all visions I would have. You know, that'd be pretty dope. I'm not gonna lie.
On the other end of the battlefield, a swirling sphere of wings and music begins screaming again. The vision then cuts to after the battle, with the field covered in corpses, and O5-1 is standing over the fallen body of an angel, pulling the sword from it.
Yeah.
There's also an attached file written by O5-1, in which he blames himself for the loss of a couple of cities, and says that everything is worse now. The administrator then adds a note about O5-1, a man named Django, who was responsible for creating this archive. The administrator says that he met Django just after World War I, as he had been one of many paranormal experts hired by various governments to assist with the war effort. The pay was good and he had freedom to experiment, but ultimately he realized that his work was just being used to kill more young men, so he quit and drifted across Europe. The administrator knew of him by reputation and they became fast friends, with the idea of an organization free of politics being immensely attractive. 9 years later, Django became the Foundation's Overseer Alpha, eventually changed to O5-1. Django had always been obsessed with history, with a collection of mostly non-anomalous artifacts in his family castle, which became the basis for the archive. He was dead set on the Foundation remaining neutral throughout the years, and he was the reason that they remained painfully neutral during the Cold War and during the conflict in Samothrace.
I mean, right, like, what kind of benefit would the Foundation really have, I guess, other than maybe political funding benefits, right? To get into any kind of war unless anomalous means were being used to sway, you know, the victory to one side or another, in which case they would then have to step in to obviously contain said anomalies, you know, keep them from being used. But otherwise, why would the Foundation get involved really in any kind of war? right? That would just be a waste of resources for him, right?
He believed that even though men were dying, more men would die if they intervened. The administrator writes that the Foundation could never stay neutral forever, as the insurgency crisis proved that. He never filled Django's seat, and thinks that
I wonder if the insurgency crisis, I wonder if that's referring to the Ouroboros cycle, because that's how that whole thing went about, right? Like, Calvin was originally part of the Chaos Insurgency, went through this whole thing, killed the O5 council members, and then ended up becoming the head of the O5 council and making a new O5 council and running the Foundation, etc., with his best friend, then becoming the lead of the Chaos Insurgency and trying to do the same thing to him. So, hence the circular cycle. I wonder if that's a reference to that, you know, if the Chaos issue they're talking about, or the Insurgency issue they're talking about is, you know, obviously it's the Chaos Insurgency, but I'm wondering if they're referencing the Ouroboros cycle in general.
That was the beginning of the end. Area 02 is a converted bedroom in the East Wing filled with 30 monitors and televisions mounted to the walls. These screens constantly display a variety of global information, from the daily NASDAQ numbers to precipitation levels of the Middle East. None of the screens are connected to anything except each other. One screen permanently displays the rate of traffic flow on all major American and European highways, with a note stating, "Driver rate needs monitoring. Fluctuations unclear. May be indicative."
That'd be a lot of monitoring,
It then says
brother.
to get in touch with the GOC, as they owe him. Another screen shows a shifting graph of the prevalence of anomalous tool use at Foundation sites, with a note reading that this risks a dominance scenario, and it's urgent that he address the council about this. Attached is also a few emails, the first of which was from 05-2 to Reza, the record keepers of the Foundation, demanding every bit of data that came out of Kabul before the bombs started falling. He writes that they're in crisis mode, as it's their job to make sure things like this never happen, and they messed up. So now they need to use the data to prevent it from ever happening again. The second email is from the administrator to 05-2, telling him that he needs to calm down, as they can't change the past. If all of his staff are terrified of him and hanging on by a thread, they can't do anything about the future. He urges him to not become upset.
Even the Foundation wants RGB in their computers, man. You know what I'm saying? The more RGB you have, the faster your computer runs. Everyone knows that.
Obsessed. 05-2 responds by saying that he'll take 200 burned out staffers over one more corpse any day. The administrator's note about 05-2, a man named David, explains that he met him after the Gulf incident in 2028, when Dave was working as a lowly tech in the record-keeping department of the Foundation. The administrator saw something in him, though, a fiery talent for putting pieces together and taking information considered worthless and forming it into something useful. He gave Dave some trial runs and found him to be a very impressive, if acerbic, young man, and promoted him to 05-2 after the last one retired. Information is paramount at the Foundation, and he was the best there was at it, once able to figure out a Chaos Insurgency attack plan based on annual ammunition sales in Libya, crossed with Anderson Robotics stock prices.
Interesting.
Unfortunately, he fell into a classic trap of becoming paranoid. As things became easier and started to calm down, he believed that it was because he was missing things. Every little accident or statistical improbability became his fault, and he blamed himself for events entirely out of his control.
This stuff is mirroring stuff from the Ouroboros cycle, right? Wasn't that also one of the O5 council members? Their special ability was able to predict probabilities and whatnot.
It came to the point where it wasn't enough to just solve the puzzle. He had to be the only one who had the answer. He went early, even by normal standards, as the administrator found him slumped over in his room, watching Powerball drawings. Area 03 is a warehouse on the outer grounds that has been remodeled into a workshop containing machinery and implements from a variety of time periods. Any item crafted with the tools and machinery in the area will carry some sort of minor anomalous effect with it. Most are anomalously improved at their given function, such as body armor that protects the wearer from damage, or a lockpick able to open any lock. One object, a solid-state computer drive labeled as practice.exe, contains an AI named Sophie, able to hold and maintain casual conversation beyond what it would be capable of considering its storage capacity.
Right.
Another, a small crib mobile resembling the solar system with a 10th planet included, causes observers to fall into a state of relaxation. This item was labeled as Aggie's Baby before being crossed out. In an attached file, the administrator approached 05-3, Everett Mann, and tells him that they're having a get-together for 05-7, and it would be nice to have him there. He could maybe bring a gift for her child. Mann stays silent for a moment before replying that he doesn't think so, as he has stuff to finish up here. The administrator leaves, telling him not to work too hard. In the administrator's note, he says that Mann was good, and he liked him. He was a former member of Prometheus Labs, and when he came to the Foundation, he designed more efficient machines, containment chambers, and sometimes even weapons. He built the devices that eventually replaced the Scranton reality anchors, and designed the Foundation's first spaceship. He writes that Mann was a true prodigy that you see once in a generation, but he was odd, as you had to really push to talk to him.
I'm trying to remember. The character of Mann sounds familiar. I don't remember if it's from the Ouroboros cycle or if it's from the admonition stuff. I'm trying to remember. I don't know, there's just so many canons and so many different names that are flopping around in my head now that I'm trying to remember where some of these people are from and what they're about. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that reminds me of the blood and light in my heart. The SCP about the artifact that made the endless city. Yeah. Yeah. I know the name Man has for sure been in another SCP story canon videos that we've gone into. I'm just trying to remember and if it's part of the Ouroboros cycle or something else. But I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
He preferred to stay huddled in his workshop all day and night, and the administrator isn't sure if he couldn't connect with people because he was always working, or if he was always working because he couldn't connect, or neither. They never found out what happened to him, as he just disappeared one day, and despite the biggest manhunt in the world, the administrator never found so much as a hair. He thinks that maybe Mann didn't want to be found, but he couldn't fill the 05-3 seat after that, as it would be admitting the obvious. Area 04 is a private library in the West Wing, containing a variety of texts and books on various anomalous phenomena.
That could have been it, yeah.
Most of these books were written in the past, but some will be written in the future, while others will never be written, so they don't technically exist. The library was placed in the mansion via a ritual aimed at amputating a portion of the Wanderer's library, an anomalous location containing all possible knowledge.
Wouldn't that be just a bad idea, trying to cut a portion of the Wanderer's library out and like attach it to this place? I mean, I guess like what's the outcome you're looking for? Are you looking for like a stable connection to the Wanderer's library that's always here so you could always like enter the Wanderer's library, or like what would the other goal be? Because again, like from other admonition and other, SCP stories, playing around with stuff like that usually has significant consequences.
The ritual did succeed, as we can see.
Yeah,
but
right.
It resulted in the caster being utterly annihilated. An attached file contains a small section of an index listing a few titles. 3 of them, related to the Serpent's Hand, have been removed. There's also a set of post-it notes with hasty pencil drawings depicting the Wanderer's library, labeled as SCP-001, with the corner of the topmost one wet.
Yikes.
05-4 was Tilda Moose, a defector of the Serpent's Hand, a group that makes their headquarters in the Wanderer's library. The administrator writes that a hand member defecting to the Foundation is the rarest of the rare.
Yeah.
He doesn't know much about her, though, and if she had access to the library, she could have come from any reality, not necessarily this one.
Yeah, like, because the Serpent's Hand has access to the Wanderer's library and all that knowledge, right? Like, they would have to have, like, a significant reason to defect to the Foundation. They would have to have some kind of knowledge or know something's going to happen, and they would have to go to the Foundation in order to prevent it. It would have to be something along those lines, you know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty big deal.
It took him a long time to trust her, with her becoming 05-4 30 years after the two meeting. She became one of the Foundation's most valued assets, though, a living encyclopedia of magic, and with knowledge of how to disrupt the Serpent's Hand, who were pretty much gone by 2049, aside from the 9th Occult War. Although the Council has had anomalous members before.
One thing that's also interesting is a lot of the SCPs we've been in some more of these stories we've been getting into lately, most of them take place in the future. Most of them are in like the 2040s and beyond, you know, like with the Three Moons Initiative. All that stuff happens in the future, if I remember correctly. Admonition stuff happens in the future. This is happening in the future. Another couple of recent SCP videos that we've done have all been around this kind of time, like the 2040s plus. I don't know, it's just interesting.
Before, they've never had an honest-to-God wizard like Tilda, but he says that she was one of the most loyal people he's ever met. Whatever the Hand did to piss her off, she never forgave them, with her joy in ruining them only matched by her thirst for knowledge. In the end, though, that was what did her in, as she lost access to the library upon joining the Foundation.
Right.
Even though she knew what she was signing up for, he doesn't think she fully understood how important the library was to her. She would give anything to have her access restored. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, like, if I had access to literally the sum of all knowledge of all creation and existence of everything ever, it would be pretty hard to give that up too. Like, I would just be fascinated going around looking at various subjects and topics and history and finding out the truth of what really happened during different time periods, and, you know, finding out what happened to lost civilizations and just learning about things, you know what I'm saying? Like, it would be hard to give up.
But in the end, she ended up giving everything. Area 05 is a large greenhouse and conservatory inside the gardens behind the mansion. It contains a number of colorful plants that no longer exist anywhere else in the world, with no records of them existing outside of...
Yeah, I've always said that of all of the Chaos Gods that I would probably, like, fall to, it would probably be Zinch, just because of my want for knowledge, my curiosity. That would be the thing that would trap me. The rest of them, I could resist. I could resist whatever temptation. At least I would like to think so, right? Like, who really knows what they would throw at you? But I would like to think that I'd be able to resist Slanesh and whatever temptations they would throw at me. Porn, Nurgle, whatever. But I don't know, that little spark of curiosity in me, man, is that's I think what would do me in.
Foundation control. They are plants that were supposedly found on a Fey island that have been meticulously reconstructed. One shrub with small white flowers which secrete a milky white substance has a placard noting that the substance has abnormal healing properties, and perhaps some should be sent to 05-9. Another plant, an aquatic fern with purple leaves, can be ground into a paste effective against magical wards. The placard notes that the seeds came from 05-5's mother. In the attached note from 05-5,
I feel like that's a reference to something that I should know, right? Like, I'm trying to go through my mind of what SCPs we've been through before, where those seeds would have some kind of significance. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I know I can't remember what stories they're from. But I know we've gone through SCPs that had references to like seeds like that, and yeah, I just can't think of. I mean, the one thing that comes to mind is obviously the Davites and their like horticultural abilities and them making all kinds of plants that have various crazy properties and things like that. But I mean, yeah, Fae stuff is what's coming to mind, right? Yeah, Davites, right.
apologizes for the mess and says that she's just sick of it all and feels like she's doing everything wrong. She asks whoever reads it to make sure her dad doesn't find out about this, but finishes by writing that it's about time. In the administrator's note, he says that 05-5, Chelsea, was one he never expected to have as an overseer, being a half-blood fairy.
Yep.
He remarks that the Foundation's relationship with the Fae folk is riddled with lies, violence, and tragedy on both sides.
So, the mother then, who would the mother be? Would the mother be the princess from the Cactus verse that cursed the first humans and those knights to become demons, right? Is that the mother? Or is the mother Titania, the Fae goddess? Or is this getting into like the only other thing I can think of is like the stuff with Dr. Clef, right? The woman that he marries who is like a druid or something like that had the daughter with him, but I think that's completely different than what they're talking about. Yeah.
The Fae population was decimated back in '88, although there were some still around. Chelsea was the result of a union between a Foundation agent and a Fae, giving her a chance at a career with the Foundation.
I think they are going with Clef, right? Isn't that with Alto Clef? He fell in love with a woman who was supposed to be a like druid forest spirit person. Maybe they in this universe she's a fae and they ended up having a child, you know, a young girl, right? I think that's where they're going with this, right?
And the benefits of Fae magic. She had some adversity, but rose through the ranks quickly, ultimately being recommended for the 05 position by her predecessor.
It could be something completely different.
She always struggled with supporting and leading an organization that was such an enemy of her people. Decades of moral conflict built up inside of her until she couldn't take it anymore. This greenhouse was the closest thing to her homeland she had, so maybe that's why she ended things here. Area 06 is a bedroom in the West Wing, renovated and redecorated in the style of traditional Middle Eastern homes. Touching any of the decorations in the room results in the hookah sitting on a low table to produce a light smoke. Inhaling the smoke causes the subject to experience a strong vision. For example, touching a small flag of the Piercing Sun movement results in a vision of the city of Ariyat, mentioned to have fallen at some point in the past. The vision shows the flags of the Piercing Sun government everywhere, with loudspeakers loudly proclaiming the current date of September 5th, 2039, and that the Horizon Initiative has beat back another separatist movement. The streets are notably empty. The Horizon...
We've gone over the Horizon Initiative. It sounds familiar, but for whatever reason, again, I'm drawing a blank right now onto who they are, but I know we've gone over them before. I'm assuming he's getting ready to kind of do a little brief summary of them.
Horizon Initiative is a group consisting of various sects of the main three Abrahamic religions, focused on containing or destroying anomalies in the name of religion. Touching a quilted blanket on the bed results in a vision of a market in an Afghan village, showing a woman kneeling in a small shop while sewing a rug. A muted television shows an aerial view of Kabul in ruins. The subject witnessing the vision will cry after it ends, but won't be able to explain why. In the attached file, 056 is arguing with the administrator about the situation in Kabul, which the council just voted on whether or not to get involved. The administrator showed up just to invalidate 05-6's vote, as he didn't want him to rush into a fight he doesn't know anything about, especially after 05-1's death. The Council of 13 is down to only 10 members at this point, and the administrator urges caution from the rest of them. In his note, he writes that 05-6, Ali, was from somewhere in the Middle East, and even though he drifted from country to country, he loved it with all his heart. The Foundation doesn't have a great reputation in the region, so they wanted Ali to join them as an expert on local paranormal phenomena. The ORIA, of course, were also interested in him, being a group of interest devoted to anomalies in the Middle East. The Foundation convinced him to join them instead, and then sent him to the ORIA as a spy. In the end, he became directly responsible for the strong relations the Foundation has over there now. He was eventually outed as a spy, though, and was brought back to the US for an administrative job, eventually reaching the Council. The Foundation never managed to stabilize the region, and Ali had bet his entire life on the Foundation instead of the ORIA. When the Chaos Insurgency struck Kabul, he tried to fix his mistakes, but the administrator stopped him. Afterwards, he drank until his liver gave out, and then drank some more.
Yikes. A lot of drinking.
Area 07 is a wooden gazebo in the gardens, containing an arbor which causes subjects who step through it to be transported to one of two extra-dimensional locations. None of the subjects' actions here will affect anything, and no one will acknowledge their presence. The first location is a small wedding in progress on a rainy day, where the bride and groom kiss under the arbor to applause from 24 other individuals. The group then mingles, and the bride can be seen lightly touching her belly.
So it's almost like they're going into a vision of the past, right? Because it says like you go to a wedding at this arbor, but no one like recognizes their presence there. They can't affect anything, huh?
The second location is a funeral in progress on a cloudy day, with a portrait of the woman standing on an easel. The casket is closed.
That's what it kind of seems like, right? This almost seems like it's a parallel universe to the Cactus verse, where it's like things are just similar enough to be like part of the Cactus verse, but there's slight differences. It's almost kind of like someone took it and they're like rewriting little things.
On a table inside the gazebo, and a dozen or so individuals are standing nearby. The man stands at the edge of the gazebo, looking out at the mansion with no emotions on his face. In the attached email from 05-7 to 01, she tells him to get off his high horse for shaming her about taking actions where he won't. She writes that the people in Samothrace are dying by the day, and the piercing sun is still marching to Adiat, and they need to evacuate who they can, even if 01 is too much of a coward to work with the GOC. The administrator writes that 05-7, Agatha, was the best of the council, talented and loving. Her rise through the ranks of the Foundation was meteoric, and she was almost going to be on the ethics committee instead, due to her strong sense of morality. She met 05-13 long before joining the council, with the administrator only finding out about their relationship a week before their wedding. He believed that married overseers was a road to disaster, but it wasn't his place to say, and he's glad they were at least happy together. They made an odd couple, with 13 being a bureaucrat and Agatha a maverick, but they brought out the best in each other. He finishes by noting that she had a lot of love to give, but she died in childbirth. He doesn't know what happened to the child, as he left that to 05-13, who he says was good, but never quite the same.
I feel like that is also a reference to another story, right? Isn't that the one where the guy, we just talked about it earlier, the breaking of my heart story, right? Where he wants to have his family back, etc. So he kind of like makes a deal with the devil, so to speak, and ends up tricking him with the artifact, the architect artifact or whatever.
Area 08 is a large non-functional machine in the mansion's basement with an unknown purpose. 05-8 described it as a time machine, however. It has sustained heavy damage, including scratches and scorch marks. The interior consists of a small...
Yeah, it's like little hints, little references to these other SCP stories, but it's not necessarily enough to like confirm that that's what it is. But it's just kind of like a reference. It's almost, again, kind of like this is almost like a center point for these different SCP universes and canons. You know, like there's almost in one of the multiverses of the SCP universe, this one happens to be one where all of these things are happening at the same time or around the same time in this one SCP canon universe, whatever.
Space with a seat and controls, alongside a small shrine with mundane memorabilia. One item is a small black disc that, when pressed, displays a holographic photo of two men with a small child, as the child cuts a birthday cake. Another item is a crumpled paper receipt for a Salomon implant repair in New Portland. No such store exists at the given address, but the date, repeatedly underlined in black marker, is September 16th, 2154. An attached file transcribes an excerpt from an 05 council meeting in which 05-08 suddenly asks the others if they think about when they're going to die. The administrator showed up out of the blue and told him that this discussion isn't productive, suggesting that he go take a lie down. In the administrator note, he writes that 05-08, Thaddeus, is another one he truly didn't expect, as he came from the future. He told them more than enough to confirm he was from a future version of the Foundation, and warned them about group of interest movements, containment breaches, and significant historical events. He told them enough to direct the Foundation where it needed to go, but never really talked about other parts of the future he came from, saying that it risked causing a paradox or causality.
I mean, there's like... There's just so many things with like playing with the future, right? Like, I don't know. He's from the future, obviously, so he knows obviously certain events that are going to happen. So maybe he has some kind of technology or know-how or understanding of how to map out events through the timeline to get them to go where he wants them to go. So he's not causing certain things to happen that maybe he's seen happen in other timelines, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, would you go, if you were to go back into the past and mess with things, it obviously changes the future, potentially in significant ways. So like, I don't know. It would have to be something where I feel like he would have done it numerous times and had been able to map out and understand these changes to get things to go how he wanted to without creating a future he didn't want to, and other paradoxes. Because then it's like, you know, if he went back in time to change things, then he was always meant to go back in time to change things. Otherwise, it would then create a paradox You know, all of these kind of things. You know what I'm saying? And that also gets into some of the stuff that I was trying to talk about in the admonition, story where, the guy chooses to become the anomaly because it was always meant to be, but he has a choice. He could have just chose not to, which would have changed everything. I don't know.
He had the unfortunate side effect of knowing how, when, and where each of his colleagues would die, including the administrator himself. He never told them any of the details, but he carried the weight on his shoulders. Eventually, he couldn't bear it any longer.
See, and that's why just that statement right there, like, that makes me think that he's gone into the past and done this numerous times and seen these various outcomes. So he knows what to do, almost like, a Groundhog Day kind of a situation, where you do everything so you know all the probabilities and things that are going to happen during that day. It's almost like, he's done that with the Foundation and seen where it can go based on certain events. So he's manipulated them to get the Foundation to go where he wants it to go.
Longer. He couldn't bear talking to each of them as if he didn't know the exact circumstances of their demise. The administrator finishes by writing that he deserved a better end to his story. Area 09 is a medicine cabinet in the bathroom of a private bedroom in the eastern wing. It contains a number of unlabeled pill bottles.
And it's crazy that, like, a lot of the stuff is just in this house. There's just different parts.
Containing an array of medicines and narcotics. Consuming these medicines results in variable but positive health effects, able to suppress medical conditions considered to be debilitating.
Like, that's a hell of a house, dude. It makes you wonder how much the resale value of this house is going to be.
Even by modern science. One pill, stamped with a W, causes immediate short-lasting euphoria by altering a person's brain chemistry. The bottle containing these pills is completely full and still sealed. Another pill, stamped with a Foundation seal, causes the gradual loss of a long-term memory. One of the pills in the blister pack has been used.
Interesting.
2 letters are also contained nearby, one still sealed with the word grandfather written on it. There is no return address on it, and it's covered in a thick layer of dust. Another letter, found in the wastebasket, consists of the words, Thomas, by the time you get this, The administrator writes that they used to joke that 05-09, Gene, was a lich due to his age and personality. He was grumpy, irritable, resistant to change, and required a small pharmacy to make it through each day. He was the oldest man the administrator ever met before he became an overseer, and he previously had worked his whole life to become the director of Site 19. He made a good overseer, sharp despite his age, and shrewd because of it. The administrator thinks that he was the only one Gene respected. Being in Foundation administration generally extends your life, due to having the highest quality healthcare in the world, and being on the council is the peak of that, due to drinking from the fountain of youth, SCP.
Not to mention, SCP-2000 and various practices that can resurrect you and blah, 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 effectively making you almost immortal.
006. As he was already old when brought onto the council, he was on the path to beat 05-01 as the longest living human on the planet. Then one day he decided he didn't want to do it anymore, although the administrator doesn't know exactly why. He had one of his employees wheel him out to the hills north of the mansion so that he could watch the sunrise alone. There, he turned off his own oxygen, and his body was cold by the time someone got there.
I mean, I guess, like, right, if you live that long and you're that old and you're stuck in kind of a body that's not really necessarily functioning, because that's what it sounded like. He got wheeled out to a place and it sounded like he was on oxygen, he turned off his oxygen. Like, that's understandable, right? Like, if your body just isn't functioning, you're kind of trapped, in your own body. understandable why you'd be ready to be done.
Area 10 is a large dog bed inside of 05-03's workshop, pushed against the northern wall and covered in dust. A photo of a golden retriever is pinned to the wall behind it, and a number of items, including a leash and chew toy, sit on the bed. Touching any of these items result in the subject being transported to the southern shore of the pond on the mansion grounds. The attached file consists of a to-do list, listing a number of projects, such as Samsara, Olympia, and Deepwell, some of which are crossed off, and some aren't. Number 6 on the list is Back to Normal, which is uncrossed. Number 8 was apparently a test with SCP-043 labeled as Deific Entity Neutralization, and number 9 was to figure out Kabul recovery plan.
Isn't 343 the God Destroyer weapon they were trying to make? Right? The one that made the gods in Alpha Lamentation? The ontokinetic destroyer thing? I could be getting them mixed up though, just because there's so many SCP numbers in my brain that I don't remember, but yeah, Samsara, yeah. I feel you.
05-10, Kane Pathos Crow, is a Foundation doctor that was famously turned into a canine due to an anomalous event, which didn't prevent his continued employment with the Foundation.
Interesting.
The administrator writes that Crow was a true genius, and in some ways getting turned into a dog possibly made him smarter, as he began to think in ways no human ever possibly could. The administrator recognizes the hilarity in having a dog as an overseer, but says that Crow was one of the best men he ever had the pleasure of working with, even if he wasn't a man.
He's a good boy.
They used a lot of his tech after the 6-Minute War, and even more of it after 2050.
Interesting title, the 6-Minute War. That almost makes me think that it's some kind of time dilation battle that happened or whatever, you know, where some kind of great war happened in the outside world and it was only 6 minutes long, but in this area or whatever where there was some kind of time dilation, it could have been a war that went on for decades. That'd be an interesting story.
He was also friendly in a dog-like way, always looking at the best in people, even when they had done nothing to earn his friendliness.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
that's an interesting concept for a story, yeah. 6-Minute War.
He was a dog, and dogs die a lot faster than humans. They fought biology as best as they could, but they all saw this coming. Crow made his arrangements in advance, and didn't want to go in pain. He spent his last day indulging in his instincts, chasing birds and playing with the others. All 13 of the overseers and the administrator went for a walk around midday, and they passed the pond, where Crow said this is where he wanted to do it. He walked in a circle.
This whole thing is just sounding like the 05 Council ready to be done with life. They're all just sound like they're ready to retire and be done with life. Now, I wonder if it's a situation where it's like death itself has influenced them, right? Because I know in some canons, death is an actual, like, entity. So I wonder if that's it somehow. Or if there's something else going on, or like what's happening with it, you know?
3 times and laid down with his eyes closed. The administrator likes to think that the syringe didn't hurt him too bad.
Yeah.
Area 11 is a small armory in the mansion's basement, with a variety of firearms and traditional weapons arranged on the walls. Touching any of the weapons displays a particular scar on the subject's body, which disappears after letting go of the weapon. One weapon, a vibro spear used on the moon during the Solidarity campaign, causes a bite mark to appear on the subject's calf, the teeth marks of which don't correspond to any possible human dental set or known animal set.
Interesting.
Another weapon, a custom hand cannon with a rotating barrel emblazoned with the logo of the Foundation Agents Corporation, causes 15 large knife wounds to appear across the subject's chest, neck, and arms.
Someone got cut
In the
up.
attached file, 05-11 writes to the administrator, telling him to stop worrying about him. He's been doing this since way before having a desk job. He has the best security detail on the planet, and he's going to a site nobody even knows about. He tells the administrator to focus on filling the other 05 seats before worrying about what happens if his goes empty. He promises that he'll be fine. In the administrator's note, he says that 05-11, Troy, had the unfortunate fate of being too good at his job. He had apparently been an extremely talented field agent, but the administrator didn't want someone like him to waste his time in the Foundation by following up on Bigfoot rumors. Troy had the condition of being able...
Would they be... I guess it would depend on if they know the Bigfoot species is still around, right? Is this an SCP situation where they think the Bigfoot species is still wiped out, so they're following rumors to see if the species is still alive? Or, because, they wouldn't really be rumors if they knew they would be alive, right? Although I guess could be searching for them and have not actually seen them, etc. So I don't know.
Able to take on field jobs if he wanted upon promotion to administration. Unfortunately, he had less and less time for field work as he rose in rank, but he was damn good at his job. He accepted the job of overseer not because he wanted it, but because he thought he should, as he was altruistic like that. Some people aren't fit for that life, though, filled with intrigue, pettiness, and messy politics, while Troy was a simple, down-to-earth guy.
This is just a weird little side note here, but I feel like a desk like that would just suck. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no drawers or shelves or anything for you to put anything in. There's no backing. It's literally just this oval shape. Sturdy, sure, but there's better desks out there. You know what I mean? You see this kind of design of desks in a lot of futuristic games and movies like Mass Effect and stuff like that, but it's every time I see something like this, I'm just this is a shitty desk. Why would you have this?
Despite that, he was good at being behind a desk as well. In 2063, though, he decided that he was needed at a site in the Levant, towards the tail end of the crisis. None of them were really sure which of their personnel were still truly loyal to the Foundation, but Troy believed that people needed to see their leaders, so that they could see they weren't scared. One of Troy's bodyguards turned out to be not so loyal, though, and even though he put up a hell of a fight and killed the man, he bled out in the car on the way to the site. The administrator writes that, knowing Troy, that's probably exactly how he'd wanted to go out. Area 12 is a bar cart in an auxiliary office in the mansion, filled with a large variety of liquor and alcohol. The bottles in the cart never run out, but upon being poured into a glass, the liquid will change into another liquid, generally non-potable or toxic.
What?
One bottle containing an aged whiskey changes into warm, bitter water containing trace amounts of sulfur.
Yeah.
Another, a jug of moonshine, changes into freezing cold, hard water, which scalds the throat when drunk and induces unconsciousness.
What? Now, he did say that when you pour it into another glass, these effects happen. So what happens if you drink it directly out of the bottle? Is it still just normal alcohol? Know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? I was happy and then sad. You're right. You're right. Because it's the idea of okay, we got never-ending bottles of alcohol. That's dope. I'm not a huge drinker, but, it's nice to have one every now and then, and that's one less thing you got to worry about, if you got alcohol that can refill itself, you know what I'm saying? But, that sucks. You got one that gives sulfur water and one that pours out freezing water that destroys your throat and knocks you out.
This jug is nearly empty. In the attached file, it shows a conversation between 0512, 13, and the administrator, apparently the only ones left of the council. They share a drink.
Like, I feel like that's something that Are We Cool Yet would do. You know what I'm saying? Like, they would do that as like a weird prank. They would make some kind of like artisanal, you know, liquor or whatever, bottle it up, and then give it to some people. It's like, hey, yeah, it's the never-ending bottle, and then you get some fucking, you know, you get swamp water, you get bog water or whatever out of your drink instead of like some whiskey. You know what I'm saying?
Drink of scotch, and they all agree that they had a good run.
Yeah.
In the administrator's note, he says that 05-12, Alto Clef, deserved what he got.
Oh, someone
The
didn't
only
like
reason
Clef.
he made it on the council was because the Foundation needed a strong, capable military leader during the insurgency crisis. Clef was a deranged maniac, but they've had a lot of deranged maniacs, and they needed one at the time.
I mean, I feel like for someone to say some in the like the Foundation universe, like there's a lot of deranged, weird stuff out there, man. You know, like for someone to be called like a deranged maniac, they would have to have done some pretty messed up stuff, which to my understanding, Clef did. He was not a very good man, I guess, depending on the canon you were talking about, you know. 'Cause in some of them, he like, didn't he hunt down and pretty much eradicate the Fae in very brutal fashion?
He did his job and beat back the enemy as they
Right.
waged war with the insurgency in Asia, Africa, and even the Antarctic. Clef didn't know what to do after the war was over, as the council was not an action-packed job. He mellowed out and became the kind of guy you could drink with instead of the guy who started bar fights. None of the other overseers spent much time around him due to the things he did way back. One day, he went looking for a fight, and got one, but the administrator says that what happened isn't really important. He finishes by writing that after Clef was dead and buried, he swears to God he saw the sun blink, just for a moment. That just leaves Area 13, a small graveyard in the outer grounds of the mansion.
It's interesting that each council member has its own part of the mansion that's like themed to them.
There are 13 gravestones arranged in a grid, each bearing an inscription that changes depending on the reader, conforming to their relationship with the subject of the tombstone. We're given a list of messages as recorded by 05-13. 01. Here lies Django Bridge, an archivist to the end. 02. Here lies David Rosen. Never saw it coming. 03. Here lies Everett Mann. Could make anything except happiness. An empty grave. 04. Here lies Tilda Moose. Didn't know what she had until she gave it away.
Oh, it was gone, yeah.
Died trying to get it back. 05. Here lies Chelsea Elliott, nay Glaistig. Feet in two worlds, fit in neither. 06. Here lies Ali ibn Bihan. Betrayed his countrymen, died of the guilt. 07. Here lies Agatha Wrights, the only one I have ever loved. 08.
Each one of their deaths seems to almost kind of have like a theme of emotion with the two, like regret, guilt, love, happiness or unhappiness. Interesting.
Here lies Thaddeus Zank. Came from tomorrow to help us today. Never forgot what he left behind. 09. Here lies Gene Actus, a relic of the past, but he knew that. 10. Here lies Cain Pathos Crow. He was a good boy. 11. Here lies Troy Lament, the best I have ever known. 12. Here lies Alto Clef, rot in hell. 13. Memento Mori. The administrator's note then addresses 05-13, Dr. Gears, who is the one reading this file.
Gears. Wasn't Gears the guy in the Admonition series that kind of plucked their timeline away from the multiversal view of like the overseeing SCP Foundation and like took all the parts from, you know, like the admonition system or whatever for himself and was like trying to do some stuff here?
He writes that it's been 80 years now, and after getting Gears onto senior staff, then directorship, and then the council, he knows him well enough to know what he does when he's thinking about
Or was it placeholder? It might have been placeholder. I could be getting him confused.
ending things. The administrator says that it's okay, as he's been here before the council,
Okay.
and he'll be here after. They ran the place well.
I know Gears like is another name that's been in other stories. Like I said, I've said this. I'm just bad with names. Like I'm better with faces. Like just having numbers and names, I get them all confused. Like if you show me a picture, I'll know what you're talking about. But like, yeah, it takes me a while to like really remember like the names of things.
But at the end of the day, they're still human. They make mistakes, and they have flaws, and that's all right. You can't help but feel responsible for the crushing burden the council members have felt, as this life isn't an easy one. They were each the best and the brightest of the Foundation, and he took them and ruined them. He tells Gears not to worry about what will happen afterwards, as the administrator's office has a handle on things since he stopped refilling the seats. It's time to start burying the past to make room for the future.
So is it almost like the administrator wanted to kill off the O5 Council so they could have the power of the Foundation to themselves solely? That's kind of what it sounds like is going on here, right?
There will never be a group like this again, and that's okay, as the mere existence of the council seems to invite tragedy. He admits that he doesn't know what will be next, but the age of the council is over. He finishes by telling Gears to come to his study when he's ready to end it, and that it's okay. He did a good job, and the administrator is proud of him.
If I was Gears, I'd never go. I'd just stay alive just to spite him. Like, nah, dog, I'm gonna be here forever. I'm gonna be here forever. You know, I'm gonna be that guy in Dark Souls that keeps lighting the fire for the next untold millennia. We're gonna be here like this.
When most fans of the SCP universe think of the O5 Council,
Right.
they'll conjure up images of shadowy figures who lack morality about the things they do in the name of protection. It's rare that we're given such an exceedingly human look at the members of the council.
Well, it sounds like the administrator might have set them up to want to like end things, right? Like it sounds like they were almost put in positions to follow down specific paths the administrator had set for them that would put them in a place where they were ready to be done with life, with the Foundation, with O5, you know, with being a council member, etc. And like, I feel like it's a situation where if you've been you know, a council member, you can't just leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be done with the council is life is over. You know,
Individuals that are heavily entwined with the anomalous, but are human nonetheless. Individuals that bleed, cry, worry, ponder, and ultimately die. It's certainly not an enviable job, as though they are given prolonged lives, it's only for the purpose of continuing their thankless work. It's not a surprise that most of them chose to end their own lives once they couldn't bear it any longer, and almost none of them had any real happiness in their lives. Above all of them is the administrator, a figure that doesn't see himself as human any longer, who has to stand by and watch as all of these individuals come and go. He's sorry for all the pain he's caused by bringing them onto the council, and has come to the decision that the Foundation needs to go forward without a council from now on. Perhaps he's realized that there are better ways for the Foundation to be run, or perhaps he just doesn't want to bear witness to the continued tragedy of losing council members.
I mean, right, it almost sounds like the administrator's kind of like God, an immortal being of some sort, you know what I'm saying? Like, sounds like he was there from the start and is going to be there long after the Foundation's, you know, no longer a thing. I feel like if you're that kind of creature or whatever, like, I mean, there's always something to be said for, like, getting to know people and growing close to them and fond with them, and then obviously having something happen to them and then passing or dying, whatever. That's obviously never an easy thing to deal with. But at the same time, you know, if you're that kind of entity that is essentially like immortal, that's kind of, I feel like, would be something that over time you would eventually kind of get desensitized to in certain ways, and you would just have an understanding that that's how things are always going to end up. You know, I don't know. To me, it seems more likely that the administrator is wanting to maybe consolidate power for themselves for whatever reason. Maybe they're not wanting or not happy or satisfied with having so many individuals wanting with their own, you know, personal ideas of how things should happen and go, etc. All these different walks of life and whatnot. Running the Foundation, maybe they feel like, you know, the administrator themselves just running things would be a better way of doing it. You know, one mind, unified, you know, without any kind of hesitation or needing to counsel each other, meet up to make any decisions happen, you know, kind of a thing. Who knows? I don't know. But it seems like there'd be a little bit more going on here where, like, you know, these O5 council members have been around for a long time, have done their job, and now all of a sudden they're dying off with no kind of replacements. It just seems a little suspect to me, you know what I'm saying? Seems a little sus. It seems like there's more to that story. Let's see if there's anything else he's going to finish off here at the end.
Now that they're gone, though, he encourages everyone at the Foundation to look upon their lives and to make sure that they're remembered.
That's true, because that is how the story started. That all members of the Foundation had access to this. No quote. Okay. Interesting story tale. I kind of don't really know what to think about it, right? I gave some of my thoughts right there with that as far as the administrator goes and the things with the council. It seems like there's a lot. I mean, obviously the characters are some characters that have been around in other SCP stories and canons. You know, Clef, Gears, Muesli, etc. A lot of them have been around in other stories. And a lot of their stories and things they talk about in here seem to be references to other SCPs. You know, the guy, I forget which O5 council was in this, where, you know, he had a wife and you know, the wife was pregnant, she died at childbirth, and that reminded me of, you know, the Broken Heart SCP story we went through, where, you know, the guy just wanted to have his family or whatever together, made a deal with essentially the devil, some kind of creature that was, you know, beyond even the Fae and, you know, the children of the night. And it basically became his son, and then he used the architect artifact to trap it in his mind, and yada yada. You know, that sounded, there's a story that sounded like a reference for that, and a lot of different ones. You know, a lot of different stories in this seemed like they're references from other SCPs. So I'm not like the whole chaos insurgency incident, or just, I think he just said insurgency incident, right? I don't think it was either the chaos incident or just the insurgency incident. For whatever reason, I mean, that seems like it's almost a reference to the Ouroboros cycle, you know, but that could be reference to like anything that has to do with the chaos insurgency, you know what I mean? Obviously the Wanderer's Library is a big reference with the Serpent's Hand, and yeah, there's just a lot of different references to a lot of different SCPs. And so it's like, being that this is the start of a like kind of bigger canon series, is this like indicating that stories in the future are going to be kind of a part of these references, you know? Or it almost seems like I said earlier, in kind of the SCP multiverse out there, that this universe happens to be you know, one where all of these events from these different SCP stories have happened here in this one universe, you know. And so now the O5 Council is gone, and we just have the administrator running things. So what is that gonna mean moving forward with the rest of the episodes in this Red Tape series? You know, there's no O5 Council anymore, which to my knowledge is basically kind of like unprecedented, right? Like I'm pretty sure there's always been like an O5 Council since the founding of the SCP Foundation. So to me, it still seems, like I said, a little sus. It seems like there could be some more nefarious things going on there with the administrator. Maybe the administrator itself had actually been killed and someone replaced, you know, the administrator with something else, and they're trying to take apart the Foundation from the inside out. You know, who knows? It could be that, or it could be someone is trying to consolidate the power of the Foundation themselves so they can run in the Foundation the way they want to. You know, who knows? I guess maybe we'll find out, you know, moving forward with the rest of these Red Tape episodes going on. So good one to start off with. Very interesting. I'm curious to see where it's going to go. Like I said at the beginning, I thought this was going to have more to do with like you know, the Davites, Sarkics, and Meccans, and maybe it will. This might just be, you know, the first initial kind of setup, and we're building up to some more of those things going on. We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing where some of the rest of these videos and episodes go. But that was SCP-001 Memento Mori by the Exploring series, the first video in the Red Tape series. Links will be down below in the description, as always, to the original video and to the Exploring series channel, so you can watch this without my commentary and reaction if you want to. Please do me a favor, if you enjoy this video from the Exploring series, be sure to give it a like, and hit that sub button on the Exploring series channel if you haven't already. The band makes a lot of great content for the SCP universe, as well as content in other universes, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, 40K, etc. He's got a lot of stuff in the channel, so check out all of his content. If you've been around the channel for a while and decide you want to take support to the next level, there is a join button on this video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. So you can check that stuff out, see if any of it would have any interest for you. Do me a favor, consider leaving a like and a sub in this video. It lets me know, it lets the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoy these videos and this kind of content, and you want to see more of it. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video of mine, consider doing that. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hang out and watch the video all the way to the end here. It means a lot. So yeah, thank you very much. Hope you have yourselves a wonderful day. We'll see you guys on the next one.